There's a different vibe around Levi's Stadium today. Nothing loud, nothing obvious, but you can tell decisions are getting made that won't stay hidden for long. There's a move in the quarterback room that could turn into a behind-the-scenes tug-of-war. There's an early season offensive problem that forces the playbook to adapt fast. There are three young guys basically standing on the edge of the roster cliff, and the faithful is going to split right down the middle on what to do with them. And then there's the wide receiver blueprint, because if this group doesn't get its identity back, the whole offense tightens up. Hit the like button and subscribe if you want daily Niners talk that's straight, emotional, and actually about winning. And drop your take as we go, because I'm asking you something at the end that ties all four of these threads together. Be honest. Are you building for right now, or are you protecting the future? Here's the reality. When you have a QB2 who plays like a starter, you don't just have a backup, you have an asset. That's exactly why Mac Jones is starting to feel like a rare commodity around the league. The 49ers brought him in on a 2-year deal, cheap, and he delivered when Brock Purdy went down. 5 wins in 8 starts in 2025, a career-best 69.6% completion rate, and 7.4 yards per attempt. Teams notice that. Every front office in the NFL lives with the same nightmare. Your quarterback situation falls apart, and your entire year goes with it. So when a veteran who can run an offense is sitting there on a low number, phones start ringing. And Kyle Shanahan has already made it clear. The plan is to keep Mac in place for 2026. That isn't stubbornness. That's roster math. The Niners just made a massive investment in Purdy, $53 million per year. So the way you survive the cap over the life of that kind of deal is by having a cost-controlled QB2 who can keep you afloat if the worst happens. Mac is scheduled to make $3.25 million in 2026, with a base salary of $1.4 million. In quarterback terms, that's basically nothing, but that's where the tension creeps in, and it's exactly where the comment section gets heated. Tom Pelissero said on NFL Network that multiple teams plan to reach out about a Mac Jones trade. No shock there. And Adam Schefter has also said the team's plan is to keep both Purdy and Jones for 2026. So if the market gets loud, and the 49ers still refuse to move him, Pelissero added that Mac and his camp could push for a contractual adjustment. Not a trade demand, more like, if you're keeping me because I'm valuable, pay me like I'm valuable. Now let me ask you the question that's going to split the faithful. Do you keep the best bargain backup quarterback situation in the league? Or do you sell at peak value and turn that into help at corner, pass rush, offensive line, whatever makes you better right now? Because the league context matters. The veteran market isn't exactly loaded, and if the draft only has one quarterback that's viewed as a first-round lock, Fernando Mendoza, that can inflate trade chips like Mac even more. Think about that for a second. If the league is desperate, the price goes up, and the temptation gets real. And while we're arguing trade him versus pay him, there's another issue that doesn't wait for October. It shows up immediately in September. Because if George Kittle can't go early, this offense needs a survival plan. Sometimes the biggest problem doesn't arrive with a headline. It shows up on the injury timeline, and you realize the impact is immediate. With the timing and severity of George Kittle's injury, the 49ers need a real plan to replace his early season production. Jake Tongs is going to be part of that plan, sure, but asking him to carry it by himself is wishful thinking. Shanahan's offense isn't just throw to the tight end. It's leverage, blocking angles, play-action looks that only work if the tight end can do real damage in both phases. If you can't threaten defenses and you can't hold the edge, the whole thing gets predictable. And predictable is how you end up living in 3rd and long. That's why one of the more intriguing options being floated is David Njoku. Yeah, the 2025 production isn't pretty. He had just 293 receiving yards and finished with 1.06 yards per route run, dragging his career average down to 1.43. On paper, it looks like decline. But context matters. Cleveland drafted Harold Fannin last year, and the rookie quickly passed Njoku on the depth chart. That kind of change can wreck a player's usage and market value, and it might create a buying window for a team like San Francisco. And here's the part that matters for the Niners. Njoku has quietly developed into a more reliable blocker. That's huge in this system. San Francisco rarely played Kittle and Tongs together last season because they don't view Tongs as a strong enough blocker to justify steady two tight end sets. Njoku changes that equation. He's not the blocker Luke Farrell is, but he offers a lot more as a receiver, and he's clearly a more complete all-around option than Tongs. Even if Tongs posted more yards and a better yards per route run figure last season, Njoku gives you flexibility. You can live in heavier personnel without telegraphing run. You can threaten the seam. You can force mismatches in the red zone. In the short term, Njoku could stabilize the offense while Kittle is sidelined. And when Kittle returns, it gets even more interesting. Because you're not just patching a hole, you're adding a piece that can block, threaten defenses down the seam, and create stress in formations that were limited last season. It's also worth saying this out loud. Njoku is still an elite athlete, and it's possible he was limited by circumstance in Cleveland more than by any drop-off in ability. A short-term deal in a high-functioning offense could appeal to him as a chance to rebuild his value after a disappointing 2025. The money isn't nothing. Spotrac projects Njoku around a 2-year, $19.9 million deal. Some of you will hear that and instantly say, nope. Others will say, that's the price of not stumbling out of the gate. And that debate is exactly where this team is living right now. How do you protect your floor early in the season without compromising the long game? Because that same question shows up in another area the front office can't avoid: the young players. Who's actually worth keeping as part of the next championship push? This is the part of the offseason that doesn't make highlight reels, but it decides everything. John Lynch emphasized getting younger and cheaper, and the 49ers leaned into it. They handed opportunities to younger players. Some flashed, some didn't, and now the organization has to decide who's actually helping them chase a ring. Jacob Cowing is the first name that jumps out. The idea was obvious when he was drafted in the 4th round in 2024. Speed, vertical juice, a legit deep threat. But the production hasn't shown up. 4 catches for 80 yards as a rookie, then the entire 2025 season lost to injury. That's not just a stat line, that's a trajectory problem. It starts to feel uncomfortably similar to Danny Gray's arc, and that's the kind of comp that makes coaches impatient. Could they keep him another year and see if he finally pops? Sure, but availability is a skill, and the Niners can't keep waiting on maybe. Renardo Green is a tougher conversation. The secondary needs upgrades, and it's not clear he's a long-term answer. He had a promising rookie year, an interception, a forced fumble, energy, and then he regressed in year 2. And the moment that stuck with people? Shanahan getting into him on the sideline in the playoff loss to Seattle after a mistake. That doesn't mean he's done, but it does tell you the margin for error is shrinking. Then there's Isaac Guerendo. This one has felt obvious. He looked good as a rookie when the backfield was banged up and the room was running on fumes, but in 2025 he didn't get a single carry. And when rookie Jordan James starts passing you on the depth chart late in the season, that's usually your answer. Running back is brutal. If the staff sees a higher ceiling or a better fit, the change happens fast. So what's the argument? Some fans are going to say you can't quit on young players too early, that development takes time. Other fans are going to say holding on to roster spots out of emotional attachment is how good teams get stagnant. Let me say this. If the 49ers are serious about getting better everywhere, tough decisions are part of it. And that leads straight into the area where the identity question feels the loudest right now: wide receiver. Not long ago, it looked like the 49ers had a clean plan at receiver. Draft Ricky Pearsall in the 1st round in 2024, bring him along, and eventually flip the room into a younger core. Deebo Samuel was expected to be moved, and he was traded to the Washington Commanders, which set up a trio of Pearsall, Brandon Ayuk, and Juwan Jennings for 2025. Then football did what football does. Ayuk's return from the torn ACL and MCL never happened the way anyone wanted, and now he isn't expected to play another game for the 49ers after his relationship with the organization soured and his guarantees were voided last offseason. That changes everything. Jennings is a pending free agent, and if you've been watching, you know he's going to have interest around the league, and likely a pay bump. Pearsall's first 2 seasons have been hampered by injuries, and he's played just 20 games since being drafted. And in 2025, you saw a lot of rotation. Kendrick Bourne and Demarcus Robinson taking meaningful snaps. Useful players, but the bigger issue is what the room lacked: speed and separation. The 49ers didn't have enough true separators in 2025, and it showed in losses down the stretch. When you can't create space, the windows get tight, chunk plays disappear, and the offense starts feeling like it's squeezing air out of the room. That's why a field stretcher could be a priority. In free agency, names like Alec Pierce or Rashid Shaheed fit the profile, if they don't return to their current teams. But the draft might be where this really gets interesting. Could San Francisco take a receiver at number 27 overall? NFL.com's Cynthia Freeland thinks it's possible, mocking Texas A&M wideout KC Concepcion to the 49ers in the first round. Her reasoning is simple. His ability to create space and earn yak fits Shanahan's offense. Concepcion put up 61 catches for 919 yards and 9 touchdowns in 2025, over 15 yards per catch, and earned All-American status. Lance Zierlein compared him to Doug Baldwin, pointing to his burst, separation, and how tough he is to match at leveraged breaking points. At 5'11", 190, he can work from the slot or outside, and that quick uncovering skill matters when protection isn't perfect. So here we are. Quarterback leverage, tight end contingency, youth evaluation, wide receiver identity. It's all one big puzzle, and it's not just about talent, it's about functionality. When you stack all of it together, the picture gets sharp. Mac Jones becomes a valuable piece in a quarterback-starved league. The offense needs a real bridge if Kittle can't go early. The front office has to decide which young players are actually part of the next playoff run, and which ones are just taking up oxygen. And at wide receiver, the team needs to restore speed and separation, because without it, the entire scheme tightens up. And the thread I promised at the beginning is this. Every single one of these decisions is about keeping the offense functional from week one, without sabotaging the long-term build. So I'll put it to you. Are you choosing stability, or are you willing to swing bigger to reshape this roster? Drop your take in the comments, and if you rode with me through all of this,